で、わしらはどう逃げるのじゃ。このまま湯の国を南へ下り、木の葉へ入ります。
Okay, so let's get this out of the way. The reanimation jutsu is by far the worst idea in the history of Naruto, at least on this scale. It was okay in part 1 when it was used for the 2 Kage, and had it been used sparingly here as well for, let's say, Madara and maybe the Akatsuki, it would have been okay. But the amount of people Kabuto has is downright fucking absurd. Okay, according to the supposed timeline of Naruto, from these handy ninja books, which you should all not buy because it's a ripoff, Sasuke kills Orochimaru towards the end of November, and Naruto runs into Sage Mode Kabuto by the end of December. So what, this guy becomes a sage in like a month? I know Naruto did it, but Naruto has generally excelled faster and also had been training under Jiraiya for years, who planned to eventually have him go there. Call me crazy, but Kabuto never struck me as a particularly strong ninja. I just thought Orochimaru kept him around for his medical ninjutsu prowess, but apparently he got strong enough to master Sage Jutsu. Okay, well, even if we pretend for a moment this was perfectly feasible, and he mastered it in the same time as Naruto, say a month, how did this guy manage to get the Akatsuki and freaking Madara Uchiha, the guy who the Leaf still isn't sure if is truly dead and hid for years under the radar of everyone, in that time? This is also assuming that Kabuto had no other ninja at his disposal around this point and got all those people in the months before the war began. And that would raise yet another issue. If Anko is tailing Kabuto during this time pretty closely, how is he able to get all these bodies without her stopping him? How is he able to evade security of the 5 villages, all preparing for, I don't know, fucking world war so easily? How did Anko let him get the Kage's bodies in this time? And if he didn't get any bodies during this stretch when he was being followed, how in the fuck did he obtain all of them and master Sage Jutsu in 4 months? I know Naruto's world is small, but in order for him to pull off this feat, he would have to know where all the bodies are / some sample of DNA to draw from. And then of course there's one other possibility I know at least some of you are going to bring up, and that is what if he and Orochimaru have been collecting them for years? I considered this pretty early on. It would at least help explain away some of the Akatsuki if they intended to kill them and use them as pawns, but this still leaves one question. Why didn't they have Jiraiya? I mean, thank fucking god Kishimoto had the self-restraint not to write Jiraiya back in. That would have been fucking insulting, but seriously, if all they needed is a blood sample, why did he never get one? Jiraiya practically spent all his free time tracking Orochimaru independently. You can't tell me they didn't get an opportunity at some point to get his blood. For fuck's sake, the man fights with his hair. Don't tell me they couldn't have gotten his DNA somehow. He's practically giving it to them. So to me, that kind of signals that maybe Orochimaru and him didn't have that many samples. I can accept Kage at least as plausible, though their inclusion makes for some of the most fucking insulting scenes and retcons in the history of Naruto, because given how Orochimaru killed Gaara's dad and the others were dead long before the events of Shippuden, having those samples would make sense. But literally no one else would. Why would Orochimaru go to the Land of Waves just to get Zabuza and Haku? I don't think he would find them nearly strong enough to be worth his time just given his personality. For Kabuto, it makes sense. The man wants to shove every shitty thing he can find into his body, but Orochimaru, although wanting every jutsu, seemed to understand which levels of power took priority. Uchiha first, all this other shit second. Anyway, I think I've made my point that no matter how you rationalize it, Kabuto gets way too many people way too fast. Also, why not revive Orochimaru if he still worships him so hard? And then of course there's this weird caveat with the jutsu where the reanimated person has to be sealed and not killed. Why? Why make the reanimated people so overpowered? I mean, given how freaking strong some of the Kage and Akatsuki were, I don't think it necessarily would have mattered whether they were immortal or not. And doing so is just plain stupid. It makes dead people inherently stronger than living ones. If I lived in Naruto's world, I would just kill myself and have someone revive me so I could live forever and be the ultimate soldier. In fact, why do they not try this? Tobirama was said to have made the jutsu and he comes back eventually. Why didn't he just ask for volunteers in the army to do so he could make them all invincible? Seems like a working strategy to me. But that's not ethical, it requires a human sacrifice. I mean, yeah, but at that point when Tobirama comes back, they were already about to be murdered anyway. Sure, there could have been an argument made to the allied forces left that some people had to die so that the world could go on and some noble shinobi would have done it. And I mean, we're talking about Tobirama. This guy was pretty much the ultimate pragmatist from what we see of him on screen. Or, at the very least, someone should have acknowledged this possibility. I mean, seriously, if Naruto didn't talk no Jutsu Obito and Black Zetsu conveniently overtook Madara, they would have been straight fucked. It's not like the show didn't realize this could have been a working strategy with its own rules set up. Logistics aside, however, this idea is just unsatisfying from a storytelling perspective. From chapter 256 to 506, we'd been waiting to see how these guys would slowly overcome the Akatsuki, some of the strongest ninja possibly ever, and now with this jutsu they are all back infinitely stronger and get beaten infinitely faster. Remember how long Sasori fought Sakura and Chio? Well, now he gets beaten in an episode by dying of his own volition. Every person who gets revived lessens the impact their character had in prior chapters retrospectively. Oh, I'm so glad Naruto defeated Pain and defended the village to have him come back much stronger. It's so great Sasuke killed Itachi in this emotional, over-the-top confrontation that gave Sasuke his best moment in the entire series. It's a great thing he's back now, so that was all for nothing. And yet, I have another objection. The caster of this jutsu is one of the worst characters in the entire series. Kabuto. This guy's a little shit who thinks he's better than everyone else when, in reality, he's weak as balls. It would be okay if the show acknowledged that fact, but Kishimoto seems intent on pretending Kabuto is really, really strong. And it's only made worse when we see how strong he gets when he fights Itachi. But that's for later in this video. Seriously, just imagine for a second if instead of Kabuto being the one behind this jutsu, it was a still alive Orochimaru. I think the fans would have been more okay with that, and it would have made for a better twist in the story. All the Akatsuki are dead? Not quite. Orochimaru has rejoined the group. If he was the one casting it, there would have been such a better personality behind what was taking place. We could have seen him laughing as he makes Ino Shikacho fight Asuma because of how funny that is. Tobi protecting Sasuke would have made more sense given how Sasuke escaped Orochimaru, and the final confrontation with Itachi and Sasuke versus Orochimaru would have been an actually satisfying way to see his character go. Unlike how he actually went in the series and came back for no reason. But anyway, enough of the logistics of the worst idea in the history of television. Now it's time to see it in action. Sorry, I know this is a nitpick, but this line just really bothers me. So Sasori is brought back, and he says the Akatsuki have fallen on hard times because the only members left are Zetsu and Tobi, the one who replaced him. And he knew that Tobi replaced him how? Okay, so first fight is Kankuro plus Sai plus Irrelevant Ninja versus Deidara plus Sasori plus Shin plus other guy. I'd say Shin's reanimation is one of the less egregious ones, just because we never got to see Shin before, but it's still pretty boring. And by God, does its conclusion feel cheap and unearned. So if you can make someone really emotional, they can kill themselves, essentially. Why was this not corrected in the jutsu? Seems like a huge oversight. I think it would have been cooler to see Shin go because he unveiled the curse mark placed by Danzo and immobilized himself. Would have actually made way more sense too, and not felt like an asspull since we saw this a while ago. And yes, the curse mark would carry over into the reanimation jutsu, see Kimimaru. Plus, it would have given us, like, some information on Danzo, this kind of mysterious guy we know almost nothing about. Would have been really cool. So overall, this confrontation is kind of pointless and boring since we're watching Sai, everyone's least favorite character. But it isn't that bad either. Also, why didn't Deidara just use the self-destruct jutsu infinitely since he can't die and has infinite chakra? Better yet, just fly Deidara into swarms of troops or the head of the Allied Forces base and have him continually explode. Then we cut to Naruto and Bee doing some training, and we find out Naruto's Rasengan is just the tailed beast bomb without a tailed beast. You know, I didn't have too much to say here, except that I am kind of disappointed Kishimoto has fetishized the Rasengan. It's pretty much Naruto's only move in some capacity. A brief recap on its forms, shall we? Rasengan. Massive Rasengan. Wind style, Rasen Shuriken. True wind style, Rasen Shuriken. Rasengan Barrage. Sage Art, Massive Rasengan Mega Barrage. And now the Tailed Beast Bomb. Can Naruto get one move that doesn't revolve around this fucking jutsu? I found Sage Mode neat for that reason because it broke up the monotony with something a little different. It was the first time since Naruto's fight with Gaara that we really saw an emphasis on the toads in his arsenal, and Sage Mode added just enough little stuff to differentiate it. Yeah, it had the Rasen Shurikens and all. And don't get me wrong, I think the build-up from Hidan and Akatsuki suppression arc, from him not being able to use it for fear of damaging his hand to throw it, is pretty cool. Again, I love this fight, but by the end it was like the only move in Sage Mode he was even trying. Why not use more invisible nature punches? I don't know, I'm getting off track again talking about when this show was good. Why? Back on the battlefield, Obito demands Kabuto tell him the secret of the reanimation jutsu and how to stop it because he doesn't trust him. Kabuto says he needs a live and dead person. Obito pulls Danzo's subordinates out and he says he has had them under a genjutsu. I'm sorry, hasn't it been like 7 months? You've kept them under this jutsu for 7 months. Have you fed them? Given them water? Let them excrete their bodily wastes? It's not like Obito knew he would need these two for Kabuto to show him the jutsu until now, so why even bother keeping them alive this long? What was the point of that? Seems like a lot of extra hassle. Or maybe it hasn't been 7 months and this timeline is wrong, but again, this raises yet another question. How did Kabuto get these bodies in like 2 weeks? I've already discussed that enough. We're moving on! Also, side note, this ending is fucking awesome. I don't know why I never watched it my first time through. Okay, now onto the insulting fights. So Zabuza and Haku get brought back and they are forced to fight Kakashi again. But first they talk a lot. And this fight is nothing but insulting to the audience. First of all, were these two really strong enough to justify bringing back? Zabuza I could see maybe, but Haku's mirrors got shattered by Naruto in No Tail Nine Tails form. Compare this to Pain, who survived getting slapped around by Six Tails, and suddenly I begin to question why Haku was brought back other than for the audience. On top of that, I guess Kishimoto realized Zabuza would have been annihilated way too quickly with how powerful everyone had gotten, combined with their sheer number of people facing them, so Zabuza gets a bit of a power boost where now there is a literal demonic aura. Am I watching Hunter x Hunter? Where did this come from? Why did he never use it against Kakashi? Like, not even once did we see anything like this. He has grown stronger in death. And then Kakashi tells Haku the truth about how Zabuza cared about him and died protecting his corpse, and to me it just undercuts the whole scene from part 1. And that is one of the best moments in the entire series, when Zabuza goes apeshit and starts crying. A huge part of what made that scene so emotional was Zabuza believed he would never see Haku again. He was a cold killer who, in his own mind, deserved to be in hell while Haku would be in heaven. Zabuza died because he didn't want Haku desecrated, and the tragic part was Haku would never learn the truth. He would die thinking he was a tool, and that's all Zabuza saw in him. But I guess we removed the tragedy part because now he knows the truth. Yay! Happy feelings for everyone. Not like we totally ruined a beautiful character arc's entire meaning in one C. And the worst part is, none of this needed to happen. These two could have just stayed dead, or at the very least Haku could have stayed dead to prevent this monstrosity of a reunion. I'm sorry, I know I'm just rambling at this point, but does anyone else see how this invalidates Zabuza's actions at the end of his life and gives them so much less nobility or meaning? Okay, so now a fight breaks out with Zabuza, Haku, and 2 unimportant ninja for a bit until Kabuto summons the 7 ninja swordsmen there. Alright, this was disappointing to say the least. The 7 ninja swordsmen had this kind of mysticism around them in the beginning of the show. We were constantly wondering when we were going to see them pop up and if we would ever get to meet all of them. And they had come in dribbles so far. Zabuza came, then Kisame, then Chojuro, and now we'll just throw like 8 at once at the audience. And to top it off, they were all dead. Why was that never mentioned beforehand? I'd assumed they were alive and wandering somewhere, but I guess not. I know the blades are passed down and all, so there are multiple of each swordsman, but this begs the question, how did Kabuto get all their blades unless there was no one using those at the moment? Clearly the sword doesn't come back with you, as Zabuza doesn't get one because Suigetsu has it. Had it. So what, they just never bothered to replace any of those swordsmen besides Chojuro? Or did Kabuto also slaughter 4 living swordsmen of the mist to get their swords and just kind of left Chojuro? Yeah, I guess they're all dead. And these guys get no screen time in the manga. Their whole presence is so underwhelming for how much they were built up. And please, please, don't even get me started on Suigetsu's brother who has mastered all the blades. Can we just evaluate that for a moment? How did he get all the blades to master them? Kisame said he knew Suigetsu's older brother and that he was much more humble. So did he inherit the blade after Suigetsu? Suigetsu was only 17, his brother didn't look especially older. So this prodigy managed to master all 7 blades in how short of a window exactly? Remember, Kisame was one of the first to join the Akatsuki, probably right after Nagato and Konan. And I can't imagine he willingly gave up Samehara for this boy to train with once he went rogue. According to this timeline, which may or may not be completely accurate, Kisame joined the Akatsuki 1 year after the attack on the Leaf Village with the Nine Tails. Naruto is roughly Suigetsu's age, and his brother doesn't look much older, so presuming that his brother wasn't born like 20 years ahead of him, which he clearly wasn't since Suigetsu talks about how they both wanted to become swordsmen of the mist, this kid had to master Samehara by like fucking 5. Unless of course the Akatsuki intervening in the mist allowed Kisame to stick around there despite being a member after its formation since they had control of the third Mizukage, but if this is the case, it's never explained or elaborated on. And I doubt it is, considering Soigetsu's rant about how resurrecting the swordsman would be difficult with Samehada in a rogue ninja's possession. I guess Kishimoto just thought nobody would notice the timeline. So then among Soigetsu's descriptions of the blade, Kishimoto now decided the executioner's blade regenerates itself. Seems kinda odd no one mentioned this in the Land of Waves, like not even as a possibility. Oh well. Oh hey, remember this scene? Well, now we're going to do it again. Haku will stand in for Zabuza even though he is now motionless, and that makes no sense whatsoever. And then a nifty little clash and bam, 2 down, a bunch more to go. But wait, we gotta cut to the Leaf Ninja fighting random white Zetsus. Well, this is the most compelling thing I've ever seen. Emotionless, droning enemies who mostly stand still and let themselves get killed by random Leaf Ninja. Fucking epic. So cut to First Company, and Darwa uses some lightning and then forced reunion between Neji's dad and Hinata's dad. Remember that conflict in the Leaf? Remember when Hyugas were sort of on par with the Uchiha? Me too. Those were better times. So they have the typical discussion you would expect, full of apologies and catching up on how the world has changed, and it's honestly pretty boring. You know what each of them is going to say before they say it? I'm sorry you had to die. It's okay, it was my duty. Such traditions are hardly important anymore. Glad to hear, put me 6 feet under again. Also this line. What the fuck, why? I was just so baffled when I saw this line. It's completely irrelevant to everything going on. And yeah, there's kind of a lot of these reunions, and they're boring every time. Man, I miss you. Me too, this jutsu sucks. Wish I didn't die and had to fight you. Same. To me, the biggest issue with all these reunions is that none of the relationships have changed since we last saw. Wow, Kankuro still admires Chiyo? Wow, Sai still misses his brother? Wow, Kakashi still respects Zabuza? I'm learning so much about these characters. Quick aside, I actually like Temari and Shikamaru's interactions throughout the war. I think it's funny the way she bosses him around when it comes to explaining the Keke Toda to the young shinobi. We're really just there to be the audience, so we have an explanation, but, you know, whatever. I think it is quite charming to watch Shikamaru bow to Temari's demands when he's the one who is supposed to be in charge just because Shikamaru is her bitch. Speaking of which, Keke Genkai has now been ruined by being turned into chakra natures again. You know, Naruto basically had limitless opportunity for different type of jutsu in the original, but now it's just more or less the 5 styles, or you're an Uchiha / use the Uchiha power. So every fight is now a 5-tier complex game of rock, paper, scissors rather than employing any actual strategy to beat their opponents. It's just kind of disappointing to see Naruto become so obsessed with these fucking chakra natures. And now we have Super Keke Genkai, where Keke Genkai was supposedly 2 styles fused together. Keke Toda is 3 styles fused together. Oh shit. So now every Keke Genkai is a nature release. But wait, what does that make the Byakugan? And the Sharingan? These 2 were referred to as Keke Genkai, but they never mention what natures are fused for those 2. There are no nature fusions anywhere on Narutopedia, but alas, it must be 2 natures if we are going to boil down everything in Naruto to fucking chakra natures. So what is it? Leave what natures you think it is in the comments below. Meanwhile, we get to an actual battlefield with the First Company, and this is where Darui takes the spotlight. Now, I think this is a good time to bring up how dumb of an idea the Great Ninja War is, at least with how it is set up here. I think it's exemplified with Darui. Darui isn't a bad character. He has distinct language and speaking style. He uses a lot of slang and comes across rather casual, yet we see his dedication and humility pretty well rounding him off. He had potential to be very interesting, but these 2 or 3 episodes are about all the limelight he ever gets in the entire series. Instead of just some random ninja from another village, the war could have been much more interesting if the Leaf 12 were who we were following instead of random ninja after random ninja in Naruto and B. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, well that would be equally dumb because it would be horribly unbalanced and you would feel as if the Leaf was doing everything. And you're absolutely right, it would be. So I guess that's my point. Why is there a Great Ninja War when realistically 3 of the 5 main nations do not matter and have no relevance to the Naruto storyline up to this point? The Leaf and Sand are the only 2 nations that have really had any development. If you really wanted to stretch it, you could claim that the Hidden Cloud got some screen time, and briefly at that just prior to the war, but there's no excusing the Mist and Rock. We haven't even seen those villages, we have no idea what they look like, and now they are made main participants in this arc where there is no time to develop anyone, and it's just fight after fight after fight after fight after fight after fight after fight. But since it's happened, We'll go into this fight for what it is. So the Raikage explains that they possess some of the Nine-Tails chakra, and we see that is because they ate the Nine-Tails flesh years ago when they were swallowed by it. First of all, that's retarded. Why doesn't everyone just eat a portion of the 8-tailed ox in the hidden clouds so they can have all its chakra? Oh wait, they tried that. Good recognition, Kishimoto. But it's still retarded. Now hear me out for a second here. They ate the Nine-Tails flesh and managed to absorb its chakra, right? So could the same thing be performed with a human being? People in Naruto clearly have chakra, so why don't they just eat each other for a boost? Like Neji dies on the battlefield and Hinata just goes, I need more energy, sorry cuz, and then she gets a super boost from Neji? Or hell, you could even do this with some of the enemies. Remember how the leaf had Kakazu's body? Why not just eat some of Kakazu for a temporary boost? I'm not saying this would be a typical practice, but you know when Pain was attacking the Leaf Village, I think that would have been the correct moment to consume Kakazu for the greater good. Second of all, the reason this is important is because they use 4 of the Sage of the Six Paths treasured tools, which requires such enormous chakra someone without the Nine Tails attempting to use it risks death. Remember that detail. And also, where did these treasures come from and how have they stuck around so long? I thought the Sage of the Six Paths was so long ago and mysterious people debated whether it even existed, but also all of society readily accepts that his tools are lying around. Like actually working artifacts. It's not even like some of the characters speculate where they came from, if not the Sage of the Six Paths. So this whole scene where the Kage shout the Sage is just a myth? I guess they accepted it now for some reason. And now what ensues is a convoluted and strangely elaborate fight scene around these 4 treasures. Well, really only 3 matter, but that's besides the point where they need to hit them with this rope to find their word, and then someone comes and slashes that word, and upon utterance of their most used word, or saying nothing at all, they get sealed in the container. I mean, it's a neat little concept and all. It's one of the more creative powers we have seen in a fight in a really long time in this show. But also, why tie it to the Sage of the Six Paths? We see later that the Sage is real, and the whole time they're using these, all I can think is, why did the Sage make these weapons? This seems like an awfully complicated way to deal with your enemies. Are we in Hunter x Hunter now, where self-made conditions are required for complicated powers? Oh my god, I keep referencing Hunter x Hunter. Now, as a cool concept as it is, I think it doesn't go much further than being just a memorable concept. The issue with this power is we haven't really seen Darui until now, so we just learned his favorite word was drab because he said it 18 times in 5 minutes before this. I mean, if this fight had Naruto, it might actually be a bit more interesting because as an audience member, we have seen this kid say believe it so many times that we wouldn't even need Naruto to say what his most said word was in his head. We already know, and it would feel much less forced.
Believe it! Believe it! Believe it! So believe it! 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 Believe it!
But anyway, this fight in of itself isn't bad and is probably one of the more memorable ones from the entire war. Watching Darui slowly piece together how the tools work and then using them himself was pretty satisfying. And then the second half of the fight commences. And then we get the 5th ninja tool. Oh. So why even bother having this complex 3-weapon stage gourd jutsu when if you have this gourd, it just combines all those into one? Why did the Sage of the Six Paths make one weapon so much stronger than the others? I just want an answer why the Allied forces have this overpowered thing sitting in their fucking closet, or why the other weapons even have a reason to exist. This larger gourd kind of undercuts the entire last fight and makes it seem pointless when Darui could have just had this thing. I mean, why not? They knew they had the treasures and Nine Tails, so wouldn't they give this to Darui the second they found out those two were in there with the weapons? The Raikage basically insists it's the singular way to defeat him, so by not giving this to him immediately, they were asking him to risk his life for almost no reason at all. Then there's some fighting, and it's painfully boring at this point. Without a gimmick to keep the fight itself interesting, you're just watching people throw chakra around. Reinforcements arrive, and Ino Shikacho uses their typical strategy, except now it's Ino whose power is essentially the most important given the circumstances. And that's pretty cool, I guess. Ino desperately needed the screen time. But still, I question why he had to use the tool after already using the other tool. There were other capable ninjas who showed up and could have taken the chakra hit, so he didn't have to risk his life, but Speaking of risking your life by using these weapons, you don't know how much I wish Tenten died trying to use this tool. It would have been hilarious, and by far the only memorable thing her character would have ever done in this entire series. Then Kakazu shows up just in time to give an ominous premonition of what is to come. And so they have their reunion and spout more meaningless dialogue before he introduces the Leafs gold and silver. And for some reason, when he introduces Dan, he calls him Tsunade's lover. Like, seriously, that's the most they can say about him. That's his most famous attribute, and for some reason, Kakuzu, this immortal guy who only cares about money, knows that fact and feels the need to say it. Another case of writing lines for the audience and not the characters on screen because they make little to no sense or come across as off in the story. And then he introduces the guy from everyone's favorite death scene. Oh great, we're gonna retread this emotional drama now, aren't we? But first we got other stuff to attend to. Hanzo fights Mifune and it's really boring and pointless. There's a flashback intercut with his fight to show Mifune fighting Hanzo years ago, and during it, Hanzo is on the verge of death, about to die when he begs Hanzo to spare. And during it, Mifune is on the verge of death, about to die when he begs Hanzo to spare his comrades. For his nobility, Hanzo decides to give him the cure, which while it does not guarantee he will live, does at least mitigate the possibility of death. Then back in the present, Mifune reminds Hanzo that he spared him for maintaining his convictions even on the brink of death, and Hanzo decides to kill himself, disobeying Kabuto's orders. Unlike the Darui fight, which preceded this one, there's nothing interesting to say about this fight. The choreography is basic, the setup is boring, there's little to no character drama between these two until it is interjected after the fact for us to see the past, and it ends abruptly with the character committing an action they theoretically shouldn't be able to do. I guess this is an appropriate time to bring up the pointless skirmishes present in the series. Fighting and storytelling is great, but it needs to be utilized properly. There are a couple of proper uses, but generally fights should be a means to an end and not an end of itself. And if they're going to stand on their own, they should have some memorable strategy / choreography involved. Let's take a look at an example for a second. Naruto versus Pain. This fight has so many problems. Naruto kills 5 Pains in like 5 seconds. The animation in the episode where he goes 6 tails is horribly unsuited for the show's style. It's intercut with Naruto meeting his father, where instead of a purely emotional moment, we get a little bit of that and a warning about Obito. So many questions are raised as to why Jiraiya lost in Sage mode if Naruto can mop the floor with 2 of the Pains with literally a punch. But you know what? It's still one of the best fights in the whole series, Shippuden or regular. Here the fight is being used as a means to an end. The fight between Naruto and Pain isn't that inherently interesting, but the build-up and conflict between Naruto and Pain as characters makes this fight as compelling as it is. How they fight is much less important than the fact that they do. Now, fight scenes can be interesting without this level of character build-up. The best example in Naruto is Shikamaru versus Temari. There isn't a whole lot of character conflict present between these two other than the both of them seek to win. What makes it so memorable, however, is how Shikamaru uses the holes we saw earlier to catch Temari off guard. In this way, while there wasn't much character build-up, there was still build-up just from the environment. This is an example of a fight which is great because of how it's executed. Mifune vs. Hanzo lacks both of these qualities. There's very little going on between the characters until it is forced upon us in retrospect, and their fight is about 3 seconds long with nothing clever about it. Mifune more or less wins because of natural immunity. Wow. How interesting. Enough of this crap, we're moving on. Back to Ino Shikacho versus Asuma. Oh my god, I hate everything about this scene. So the 3 of them show up and Shikamaru says they are here to take them down, and Asuma says they have grown into fine shinobi. 1. You guys haven't even fought yet, so how can you possibly indicate new growth? And 2. Didn't you more or less say exactly the same thing when you died the first time? I'm sorry, what is being learned or introduced here? This whole scene is so dumb. And of course Choji can't hit him because Asuma is his former master, so Asuma has to comically call him fat to get him riled up, and then he still can't do it, so Ino possesses him, and they all try to talk him into it, and we get some flashbacks connecting him to the evolution of Caterpillar. Again. And soon he literally sprouts wings of chakra. God damn it. It was cool when he did it against Jirobo on the verge of death through drugs, and it seemed like he had so much chakra he couldn't contain it, but now he just does it because he feels like it. Seems like a huge waste of chakra to materialize wings you don't use to enhance your fighting ability, you fucking moron. But anyway, a little bit before this crap, Choji punches Asuma and they're about to seal him. Shikamaru says not to repeat his final words, thank Christ, and then he says he has nothing left to say to them because they have become a perfect team. The tears start again. Geez, it's just like when Hidan killed him. Except this time it's much less impactful. Back with Naruto and B, Naruto detects the Ninetales chakra emanating from Kingaku and Gingaku and puts together that something ain't quite right. B makes almost no effort to stop him, so Naruto channels Sage mode, dashes outside, and manages to detect the entire war with Sage chakra. Aw shit. So Iruka has some conversation with him, attempting to make him stay, and Naruto is like, I'm fucking stronger than all of you now, and dashes away with the Nine Tails chakra. And then he finds a note from Iruka, who put it in his headband that Naruto dropped somehow without him noticing. And then B agrees to protect Naruto on his totally reckless and thoughtless skirmish and makes Iruka cry. And this episode ends with Naruto pushing a tailed beast bomb repeatedly into the barrier and B punching them. I guess the barrier prevents the tailed beast bomb from exploding on impact for some reason. Ah, whatever. Not much to say except this whole thing is way more drawn out than it needs to be. Seriously, this takes a full episode to go through, and I don't think I skipped any details. Meanwhile, yet again, Black Zetsu goes to assault the Mizukage and capture the feudal lords, hopefully to lure out the Jinchuriki, but too late for that one. So Toby is like, just let him stall the Mizukage there so she doesn't join the forces. Sensible response. But now as an audience member, we finally get to see what Black Zetsu is capable of. Oh boy, one of the final members of the Akatsuki. This should be good. Toby also announces here that he will join the fray and at last to get the tailed beasts. Back on the beach, we get to catch up with what some of the other ninja are doing. Oh my god. It's too good. This might be the best character moment in the whole war, as it just epitomizes how useless she is. Anyway, they seal away the bad guys and the fight on the beach is over. But then just in time, Mr. Toby arrives to summon the Gedo statue. Now I don't know about you, but ever since Naruto started, I thought there was a distinct lack of sumo wrestling and kaiju battles. Luckily, through a stroke of genius, Kishimoto manages to condense the two genres into a single scene with Choji and Chozo fighting the Ten-Tail statue. Oh my god, this is exactly what the series needed. Wait, so this barrier is impenetrable? Did Naruto and B such minimal effort and their explanation was the barrier wasn't built for two Jinchuriki? B could have just as easily smashed the tailed beast bomb with his body. Naruto just sped up the process. It's not like the ninja in charge of the barrier were actively trying to stop them other than putting up the barrier. If one of them had tried to escape, the biggest thing holding them back would have been if the other ninja caught up. But those two are fucking masters in Cherokee. I think there is little doubt either one of them could have rendered that squad useless. So basically, the barrier is almost pointless. Also, I love Naruto's sense of urgency for feeling he must enter this fight. With all the killing, he probably thinks it's been months, but in reality it has been less than a day, and Naruto is frantic because of how many lives were lost. Really makes you think if this strategy of deploying 100% of your troops was a really great idea. Anyway, this is enough of an impetus to get the two Kages off their ass and join the fray. Thought the right Kage was Supreme Commander and was supposed to leave under no circumstances. What if he died on the way there? Was there really no one else capable of apprehending the Jinchuriki? I know the Uchiha are all dead, but there wasn't, I don't know, a Senju around to help seal the Nine Tails? I mean, seriously, all the Uchiha have Sharingan and are dead, so I get they can't do it, but they never say what happens to the Senju. For some reason, they just aren't around. What caused them to die out and not the Uchiha? Is it because the Uchiha bred so much within their clan that they stayed as a whole? Are the Uchiha Naruto's Amish people? Wait a second, isn't Tsunade the first Hokage's granddaughter? Why can't she use wood style, or some sort of Senju power? Oh well, I guess she can punch things though. It's pretty cool. Where was I? Oh yeah, the two world leaders decided to both step out to stop the Jinchuriki. I mean, I think one might have been sufficient enough. Especially if you sent the right Kage who basically knows all of B's weaknesses. Because there's no reason all the Kage have to leave this place and risk their lives and the whole leadership of this allied force. Personally, I think it would have made much more sense to send the sealing team or something. Send these guys from the beach who built that 4-barrier wall. Even Hiruzen couldn't break through that thing, remember? I don't think the Jinchuriki are quite that strong. Plus, if they could throw together a sealing team for a jutsu they didn't anticipate this quickly to seal dead people, why couldn't they find some people who specialized in Jinchuriki sealing? They can't all be done through the Reaper Death Seal. There has to be some other way, at least lessen their power through sealing. But I've rambled on about this point long enough. Time to go back to the whole beach where more of this shit is happening. So they try to stop Toby from getting the tools, and honestly, I think there was a missed writing opportunity here. I mean, it's something so basic, and it would have been so satisfying to witness. Even though there are ninjas standing by the tools, at no point do they try to use them. Instead, they just charge him, and he kicks them aside. Come on, guys, you know neither one of you are strong enough. But what would have been cool instead is if one of them tried to call him, shouted Madara with that one gourd. Then we would see Toby stare at them, not responding for a second, as if to indicate he knows what it does, and then he would just mutter yes or something, but not get sealed in. It would perplex the allied forces and do a good job at foreshadowing this guy isn't Madara. You could even have a scene where Shikamaru reconstructs what happened in his head and warns the base that this guy isn't Madara and they don't actually know who they're fighting. I'm not saying because this didn't happen it's bad writing or anything, but to me it just seems like such an obvious and missed opportunity to allude to Toby's true identity. Anyway, the Gedo statue rains some devastation and Toby is Audi 3000 with the ninja tools. God damn it. You guys had one fucking job. Keep the schmuck away from the Ninetales and you already blew it. In 5 seconds no less. Kabuto recalls his dead ninja across the battlefield and fighting abruptly ceases for the day. Wait, hold on, we gotta get through this announcement.
1万のうちおよそ4万。今日倒れた忍び連合の仲間の数だ。
40 fucking thousand people died, are you serious? The Raikage is a worse general than George B. McClellan. Seriously, maybe it wasn't a good idea to thrust all your men on the battlefield. Just think about it. Now call me an asshole, but hold on, let's do some math here. There are 80,000 soldiers. We'll say 10,000 of them are samurai. So our new total is 70,000. Now let's divide those forces among the 5 great nations equally. With my nifty calculator, I surmise that each nation supplied 14,000 soldiers. Holy Mother of God. Where did these guys come from? Just bear with me for a moment, please. We see the Leaf Village many times in the show, and at no point does it look like it could house this many soldiers plus a population of civilians without some serious slums developing. And if you still aren't convinced, I just want you to think about this even deeper for a moment. Let's say half of that figure were out on missions during Pain's invasion. You mean to tell me Pain ripped through 7,000 soldiers without sustaining much of any harm aside from Kakashi? How pathetic is the Leaf Village that they can't fend this guy off? Seriously, there are thousands of them on one guy who quite frankly can't be killed with a really strong punch. I'm not saying Naruto wasn't vastly more powerful with Sage Mode, but I question the relative strength of the Leaf's ninja at this point. Seriously, this figure is absurd. I didn't even think the Leaf Village had a population that was 10,000. It looks like it had housed maybe 5,000. Keep in mind, this village is usually not too crowded. I don't see too many people walking the streets, really. Doesn't look like it has a big population. So where did all these soldiers come from? Did one nation just contribute an inordinate amount? I mean, it could be the Mist or Stone villages. We haven't really seen those before. So far, the theory that the Mist and Stone Village collectively contributed 50,000 troops is more plausible than the Leaf's contributions. I digress. Also, the Akatsuki lost half their force too. So I guess they played equally smart strategies. And by that I mean almost no strategy at all. So Naruto is back on the move and talking to the Ninetales, where we get another pointless flashback of Naruto and Sasuke to show their struggle as rivals. You know there is already so much shit at this point showing them as children, I hardly see how this adds anything to the plot we didn't already know. And it ends about how you would expect, with Naruto promising to end the war and save Sasuke. Yippee. I just wasted 15 minutes of my life learning nothing. Moving right along, we see an exhausted Neji seek help in a medical camp and Kiba points him in the right direction. Then we cut to a conversation I actually kind of enjoy between Itachi and Nagato. In it, the two lament their situation and comment on each other's characters. You know, I think this conversation is actually kind of interesting. We rarely see the Akatsuki interact with each other on a personal level, and here it's cool to see them just be themselves. Their dead near invincible selves. And then even more stuff happens I enjoy, where we see the Zetsu impersonate some shinobi and try to assassinate the army. I mean, it's a shame it is almost never brought up after this, but at least we see here that there was a purpose in Toby throwing them all on the battlefield. It only takes a few disguised ones to, in theory, murder a whole camp. The element of surprise is very powerful. Great thinking, Toby. Unlike some other Supreme Commander in this war. Hey, where is he anyway? This is my angry face. So Naruto tries to outspeed him, but A says no one has since the 4th, and B throws himself in front of the Raikage's fist, saying he will give up his life to let Naruto pass. The Raikage swears he will kill both of them if they need to prevent Obito from winning. The back and forth between all the characters here is actually quite interesting. At least there's actually something at stake for once in this conflict. They're threatening to kill Naruto and B, two of the only likable characters left in the entire show. Actually, that's debatable, never mind. So we get a really long flashback about B and the Raikage, seeing him young and stuff. It's fine. At this point, everything is just fine. Although I will say, I'm kind of annoyed everyone calls Minato fast. He ain't fast, the motherfucker can teleport, that isn't true speed. That'd be like if we said Usain Bolt was slower than Jamie McGurry because the guy drives a car. And comparing someone walking on foot to someone literally transporting their body through time and space, one is using a tool which gives them a clear advantage. Of course Minato is faster, he isn't fucking running. He's moving his whole body instantaneously. It'd be like if he said someone was super durable at taking hits because they wore titanium armor. That armor counts as much as taking a hit directly as speed does when referring to instant transmission. Moving on, Tsunade sides with the Jinchuriki. Thank God, her character is back intact, actually putting up a fight for once. And the Raikage is prepared to murder everyone. There's also a flashback that shows the Raikage being overprotective of B. I don't have an awful lot to contribute to this part since it's actually kind of decent. I like the Raikage's interactions with B, and having him lose to B's lariat is pretty sick. But then Naruto starts talking and insisting he is Ninja Jesus. And it's really fucking dumb. Why must he be the savior? I only ask why, that's all. Didn't have to be this way. Could have been a story about a talentless hack beating all odds, but let's just make him the son of man. So the Raikage, unconvinced, charges Naruto at full speed, and then... God damn it. As if this brat needs another upgrade. Now, not only is he stronger than most everyone else in the war, he's also faster than the Raikage. Why? Why was this needed to trust Naruto? He just had to outspeed him? I understand the point of this scene is to show even the Kage can't stop Naruto and B anymore because they have grown too strong, but this is dumb. Why does the Ninetales also give you super speed now? When was this alluded to ever in all the Ninetales transformations? That's right. Not once. This is fucking dumb. Everything up to this point in the conflict was perfectly fine, felt kinda cool, but we have re-entered stupid territory once again. As if Naruto didn't have enough strength, let's just make him faster than the Raikage too. Now he ought to be able to win the war. Remember, if you're fast, it's a sign you're Jesus. Also, while we're here, did we really need the allusion to Naruto's dad? It really undercuts the whole message of this scene. First, I thought the point legitimately was that Naruto reminded the Raikage of Minato, and therefore he should be allowed to leave, rather than the point actually being the Raikage is now unable to stop him. And now the two Jinchuriki have stepped into the fray, and with that development, I believe it is time to open yet another chapter in this script.
If I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you.